I definitely wanted to work for somebody else before I would go work for my parents professionally. I mean, I pretty much had enough of living with them and stuff, so I sought out other examples of how to run businesses. And so what that kind of did is it made me leave New Hampshire, because at the time, New Hampshire just had I graduated in 09, and marketing had just dropped right off. But where marketing was really jumping up was in California, so I moved out there. I had some connections. I didn't have a car, which is, if you ever lived in California, it's almost impossible to get around in a car. We did all kinds of unbelievable things, and then, like I kind of said in the last class, what we did was basically, I learned sales by learning how to kind of fail, failing the fastest. I failed much faster than any of my peers, and that's what's led me to here. It certainly wasn't successes, but it was more the attempt of success, or the attempt to try and figure out what is it I even want to succeed at. I know the people that are successful in accounting that hate accounting. They work 90 hours a week, and that's what they do. They never leave the desk, and it's great going into retirement, but that's not actually what they want to do. So it took a while to shape that, and I think that really the thing that shaped it for me was, one, travel, and not being scared to lose everything. I think one thing I did learn in California, the guys that are millionaires are the guys that are sitting around and looking like complete bums, eating canned food, sleeping in their car. In California, you can be completely. It doesn't happen as much in New Hampshire than back, but California was ridiculous. You would trip over billionaires. It was just really over the top. But it was also very, area based. So it was kind of this idea that I started to realize that it wasn't. You can never guess what a customer is going to be. I used to do business. Well, once I moved from California, I moved to Chicago, and we used to do business-to-business sales. We would go into 100 businesses a day, unannounced, and just sell stuff, which is totally legal. You can't do that in homes. You have to get a license to do that. You pay for a week. And there are different businesses doing, like AT&T has built their entire business off of that. A lot of people don't know that they go work for AT&T and they end up doing what they could be doing for their own business and doing it for somebody else and making a lot less. And that also kind of led me to start asking for commission. I originally always saw a number like, oh, my degree gets this number when I get out, and it seems like, maybe 10 years ago that number was probably still pretty close to what I expected somebody to be making, and it just wasn't realistic. You can't live in LA or Chicago on those type of money. And that was what kind of changed my attitude. It was like, well, what do you need to do to make the money to do that, or to keep money coming in all the time? And we realized that very quickly that it was, it's just sales. That is your lifeline, your lifeblood, a river of a business. It's really what's always moving. If you don't have that coming in, and then you always have bills coming in, because that's generally what happens. And people think as they get more successful that the bills are going to get easier to pay. That's absolutely the opposite. Your bills are only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you'll be able to handle it incrementally. If that's your goal. And again, it's totally based on what you want. That's what the other thing is. You never want to do something that you're not really committed to. What's so funny about? Did you put up the car?
Not yet, no. In fact, I'll tell you what. If you want to do it, go ahead and minimize that screen, and it should be down there.
Yes. What is it? It's on the. Okay. Well, what's funny is
Phil, could you hit the lights so we can see the visual bit of things?
I guess when I graduated from school, I expected to work for somebody else, like maybe go work with Apple or some other software companies. And I realized that I don't want to represent somebody else. I don't want to work for the New England Patriots, as much fun as that can be. I wanted to work for myself and represent myself 7 days a week. So where that comes into sales is me just deciding to talk to 100 people a day. That's what it really came down to. Every business that I saw build up, that's how they did it. There's really no secret. You're just seriously using your network. Networking is absolutely key, because the hardest thing that people learn in business is that it takes much more effort to make a new customer than to keep a customer you already have. Customers really are the currency, because in real estate, it's one transaction, maybe 10 in a lifetime for most people, depending on how serious they see the investment. The sales I used to do, we used to do 100 sales a day, no problem. Just selling little pictures, just selling anything, anything that you can build value into. We were talking about consumer behavior, and we were talking about, well, what are people's needs? You know people, you've seen your entire life being with people. What do people continuously need? And you see that there's big markets in that. I have friends that are in yogurt, like Stony Fields, and they've found needs that people have wanted, but never really had anybody do. Like getting really good premium yogurt at a supermarket, stuff that just was unheard of, in terms of just not that long ago. Because people just didn't perceive that they needed it. They always thought that whatever was available was good enough, or whatever, or for any other reason. So I guess want to dive into the sales part, but I wanted to give you just a background. I mean, sales basically changed my life in the sense that I originally wanted to work for somebody else, and now I work, and I live this business. I mean, I am 24/7. This is what I do, which is also like I plan my vacations ahead of time. Like I schedule my whole life out a year in advance. Not particularly day to day, that's literally impossible, but I do schedule stuff that I want and I work around it as best I can. Stuff changes every day, just like today, I got here just in time because a bunch of things change. But you learn to work with that and you mitigate that as you kind of are in control of your life and you start to take control. I really think that I started to take control of my life when I graduated from school and I was scared of losing everything. And then because of the situation, I had paid off school by the time I graduated because I was working 90 hours a week during any time I wasn't at school, or more than only 85. But the time I was in school, I worked 40 hours a week too. So it was just this nonstop put, and I'm sure a lot of you in a similar situation. And I basically went from that, and there was no work. I couldn't find somebody to hire me 3 jobs. I was working 3 jobs, couldn't get 40 hours, volunteering my services. So it got to the point where I just realized, it's okay to just, let everything fall apart. In a sense, you have to be okay with it. I've seen millionaires lose it all, and there's people that will never make that money again because they're scared to lose it again. It's that idea that when I got trained in sales, I had nothing, and I learned how to be dropped anywhere in the world and be able to find a way, even if you didn't speak the same language, whatever. You get through it. You think about how all businesses have started. It was just guys in the street yelling at each other. That was it. I mean, for a long time. And then over these years, we've developed these sophisticated ways of doing this. And I think people get clouded up in that. It really comes down to calling people and you already have relationships with, start there. And then sales is identifying what those people need. So I guess let's go into the sales.
Yeah, and Steve, before you go, real quickly, 2 things, if you would. First of all, you mentioned about anywhere in the world. You've had some experiences abroad as well,
Yes,
and if you could touch on those at some point.
I through UNH, I actually was able to figure out a way to scam the school out of a cheaper education by going to a country called Budapest, which had hyperinflation. So it actually was cheaper for me to go live in Budapest in an apartment. It was a luxury apartment, and we went to school for cheaper than it would have been to commute to UNH for that semester. So I actually saved money going abroad. But it's because we didn't go to like Paris or, it was just going slightly out of that realm. And so what happened was I was in that country and I spent all my money that I had saved very quickly. And so what happened was in the school I was able to start selling stuff in the school, just stuff I could buy at the market next door. 2 kids that didn't have time to go to the thing. And that's how I literally survived in Europe with nobody speaking English. I mean, almost nobody, just a couple of Americans, like 9 Americans. And so we kind of learned from there. I actually met my wife there while I was there, my now wife. We had a film class together, and she was an exchange student from France. And we kept in touch after that, and we got married when I moved to Chicago. We lived together for a while, and we decided that's what we wanted to do. And then we had actually driven across the entire country, because through sales I was able to raise money to do really wild things, which was really all I wanted to do. I mean, the purpose of life and why I do work 7 days a week when I'm working is because you want to really design life worth living. You really want to, what is worth, like what is life? Like is it sitting at the desk, counting away so that when you're 90 that you're taken care of, and it is that too, and it is raising children and all these things, but you still want to be able to go do some wild stuff you can talk about later. And I see business as the way to fund all that. I work for groups that did trips of a lifetime every year, based on this type of thing, and that's where I really want to kind of bring your focus. Sales is just a method. It's a proven method to make anything you want happen. If you're really ready to be committed to it. So I guess going into the sales.
Yeah, that's perfect. Let's get the lights back on just so we don't, nobody's going to fall asleep with this message. That's for sure. But let's not, just one bank, Phil, if you would, just the one. There you go. Good. Yeah, and feel free to pull back up your website. So that's a nice backdrop. But guys, look at that. Before you get rid of that, Steve, look at it, guys. From an advertising standpoint, you start when the lights were out a little bit better. But you tell me somebody's heart's not into what they do. Look at it. Look at the name is prominent there. It's in that red, which is a powerful color, right? The negotiator, kind of in quotes, kind of says, all right, there's a little nickname to it, a little style. The phone number, very prominent. The website, right there. And what I love, the license plate, right? Look at the license plate.
Custom license plate.
Yeah, negotiator. In fact,
I inherited this car. This was actually my father's car. He broke #1 sales in the state. I think it was 2001, and he decided to do this because I guess in real estate what happens is you're always out in the field. All the sales jobs I do, you're always out in the field, and typically you just be in your own car, so I like having a PT because you can throw stuff in and out of it and use it kind of like a truck, but it's a little smaller for like if you're in the city area. But basically, you live in your car when you're doing sales. You got to go to the people. People that aren't doing that, people that are doing it over the phone, I asked in the other class, so anybody in the other class don't answer, but does anybody know how effective like indirect marketing is by any chance, like just statistically, like how that works and stuff? Because basically everything I'm talking about is direct marketing. Like I didn't bring brochures or really cards or anything like that, because my business is seriously one-on-one, and every situation is completely different. And all our presentations are all brought on based on what they're trying to see. Like if they want to see a certain house, we're going to print out all that information. We'll go dig up and research, figure out what's going to happen, and give it the best presentation of is this even feasible for you. I usually try to talk people out of it. That's part of the process too. There's a lot of great actors that used to do that. They would reject any script that came to them unless the person really beat down the door. This is the one, like they're willing to fight for it. Which is kind of the other thing. A lot of people deal from in sales. They deal from kind of a weakness. I usually like a Best Buy thing. They basically you walk into Best Buy and they go, can I help you? And what does everybody say?
No, I'll say it.
And that's kind of dealing from weakness too, in a sense. They know that that's what they're going to say, but they never change what they say. Always say the same thing. Every department store. I guess as soon as you stop saying that, they promote you or something. I don't know what happens, but that is that idea that if you're dealing from strength, if you go in and you have a product that is worth a certain price, what happens is people beat you up because you're like going around and they'll go, hey, I want it for $15, not $20, just whatever it is. And you got to hold your ground. You got to deal from strength. Like, well, this was $50, and we're giving it away for $20. It's a lot of this kind of deal ritual where men, and women have always had this like thing where everybody's interested in the deal. Everybody likes talking about that. And the other thing is motion creates emotion. If you're coming in slow, like a lot of guys come in, they do like a shake hands, and it's really salesy, like car salesman stuff. We almost never do anything like that. The big thing is just get out and start talking to people. A lot of people try to be too formal. People just don't have time. The big thing is you want to consider their needs when you do it. And we went into psychology a little bit in the other class too. I guess what I'd like to do is just talk about like kind of the steps. Like when you give like a sales pitch, you can literally script out the entire situation.